So let's say you want a V stripe rather than a horizontal stripe, and you're trying to figure out how to basically place the pattern. So here's an easy way to do it. So what I like to do is just to put my ruler down here on the pattern itself, and then I just say, okay, what kind of angle? Do I want a sharp angle or not so much of a sharp angle? And then what you want to do is you want to put it on the bodice somehow, anywhere between the waist to the shoulders. But I like going with the around the waistline, only because I like to work with the see-through, and the see-through is only 18 inches long, and I can see right through and figure things out that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it with a pencil. Now, I know you can't really see this pencil, so what I'm going to do is put the ruler back on, and I'm going to mark it with this pen so that you can see what's going on. Yeah, it's the fabric pen, but it'll do the job. And then after that, once you have that decided, and use a pencil or a pen, whatever you want. There's no right or wrong here. I'm going to place my back bodice piece right behind it. And then what I'm going to do from here is use my awl to mark the pattern. And if you don't have an awl, that's okay. For many years, I actually used a safety pin, a large one, or I like to use straight pins because it took me years to find an awl, believe it or not. So I was working without an awl forever. So you're gonna look at where you made those punctures, and then all you have to do is draw that line, and then when you place the patterns on the fabric, it's going to be virtually the same front and back. All you have to remember is on what line you placed the color stripe on. So I'm going to show you that now. Let me just get myself situated. Now for stripe placement, what I did was I lined up that new line that I had drawn, that diagonal line, with a stripe. So all you have to do is just put it, pattern weight on it, trace it out, mark it just like I showed you how to mark the blue wool top. And after you cut every piece out, then we're ready to go. Remember, if you want all the stripes to match up, you're going to have to place both lines, front and back, on that same pink line or whatever striped color line you have, so that it's symmetrical, and then it's going to look really nice from the center front, from the side, and from the back.
Now we're ready to cut the fabric. After you've finished cutting fabric, go ahead and take a good look at all the notches and mark the notches with either a fabric or a chalk pen. Try not to cut notches into any knit fabrics. It may end up either pulling, snagging, or running the fabric.
So now we're ready to assemble the pattern pieces so that we can start sewing up this top. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is work with center front and center back pieces. I have right here with me the center back piece. Now, as you can see, it's a little wrinkled. The reason why is because I'm paranoid. I am not going to press this or steam this or iron this until after I am finished with garment construction completely. The reason why is when I'm working with a knit, knits are never really pressed or steamed unless they have some type of interfacing in them. Or if you're combining a knit and a woven, yes, then you're definitely going to want to press as you're stitching. But with this right here, this isn't a good idea. If you steam one piece, what ends up happening is that you're going to shrink one piece and then you're going to have to cut all these new pieces out. So bear with me with the wrinkles, and we're going to steam and press once we're completely done and finished with this garment. So the next thing is to match up all of the notches. So I have my center back notches here. So you see where I marked it here and here. Okay, so now I'm going to put a wonder clip in. Now I'm working with clips instead of pins because clips are way faster. And also sometimes when you're working with straight pins, pins have a way to kind of either puncture the material or snag it. So I like to work with clips instead. And if I have to work with pins, I do so very sparingly. And these clips you can get at any craft store or you can get online. Up until recently, you could purchase like a set of 50 for them for $17. Now, what I definitely want to stress out, when you're working with the center back seam, you're not going to stitch the center back seam all the way up. You're going to stitch it probably 5 inches, start 5 inches, or start from hem to 5 inches to the neckline, because we still have to stitch in that band. So we have this one clipped and ready to be stitched, and then from here on out we're going to be kind of clipping and stitching at the machine. And for this exercise, I'm sorry guys, I'm going to be working on my industrial. But if you don't have industrial sergers, please use your home machines. You don't need a serger, commercial or home version, to make this top. All you need is a machine that has any kind of overlock stitch or stretch stitch. And also remember that you always want to kind of baste to fit first. So these practices are really for a finished garment, but if you need to, just do a base stitch, fit, make sure that you like the fit, then you can go back and stitch with the regular stitch that you want to use for a finished garment. All right, so go ahead and pin or clip the center front seams, and next we're going to be stitching those center front seams. I'm going to go ahead and get started with just stitching the center front seam. Now, if you're working with a home machine, it's totally fine. If you're working with an overlocker, go ahead and do that. Use your overlocker as well. Make sure though that your seam allowances are good. Some overlockers have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. This one is actually a 3/8 inch mock safety machine, so the seam allowance is about 3/8 of an inch. And there you have it. I finished stitching just the center front seam like that. now we're ready to get started with stitching the center back seam right here, okay? But we're gonna start right here, about 4 or 5 inches down from neck, because we still have to stitch in that neckband. So I'm gonna go ahead, stitch that up. So now I'm ready to clip and pin the shoulder seams. So I'm matching up where those notches are again. They're right here. And then here's the other set of notches. I don't know if you can see them. They're right here.
Now I'm going to match up the side seams. Here is where the underseam of the sleeve starts, all the way down to the hem of the top. I'm going to start by matching up the notches right here and then clip. Here is the other notch. I'm going to clip that one too. Then I'm going to add more clips from sleeve to hem. When I'm finished pinning one side, I'll go ahead and pin the other side with clips, and the seams will be ready to be sewn up.
So now I'm ready to stitch the shoulder seams. So I'm going to start with this here. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and start stitching the side seam from the sleeve all the way down to the hem. Now, whenever I work with stitches like this, I like to start from top down, because in case you have some hemming issues or the differential was off, you can still trim the hem versus, you know, you're gonna be able to trim the armhole, or you know, all the arm's eye and all of the other parts. I'd rather keep that as much intact as I possibly can, so that the only adjustment that I would need to make would be just in the hemline, which is a quick fix versus having to adjust other pieces. So now we have the sleeve done, and then we also have the side seam done. Now you're going to do the same thing on the other side.